Mankind must put an end to war. A war will put an end to mankind.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Well, I'm not drunk. I've earned everything I got.
Change will not come if we wait for some other person.
Hey, political listeners and watchers. I have to look at myself in the screen now, so this is going to creep me out a little bit. But we are here on Blind Partisan Podcast today. We have our second mayoral candidate, Pat Evans.
And the best one, by the way.
I'm sure he'll convince you that he's the best one. And we're going to talk about.
Don't need to watch any further.
Well, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
Thank you.
Send in your
contributions.
Your contributions.
PayPal evansformayor.org.
You got to pay for all those billboards.
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah. So I kind of want to just jump.
Thank
right
you
in.
for your $10,000 contribution, Elliot. I appreciate it.
No. I don't, if I had $10,000, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be in the warmth. So give us a little bit of your background.
My background?
Yeah, I mean, so like
Sure.
before we went on, you were speaking some Portuguese and
Yeah, today,
what's
this
up?
morning I had, as we talked about this morning, I have a company in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was up having a conference call with some people, and that was in Portuguese. So I was speaking Portuguese for about an hour. And then this afternoon, a little bit, I have lunch with some of my Latino friends, so we'll be doing that in Spanish. And right now we're doing it in some sort of English,
Green Bay.
American, Green Bay-ish. My business partner always says that. So when we talk to companies, and he's a very intelligent man, he speaks 5 languages or something. He's a chemical engineer. But he always, whenever we talk to people or if we're sending an email, we'll converse ourselves because then he always wants me to put it in Green Bay-ish. He always says, put it in Green Bay-ish because he actually speaks proper English.
Right.
From England, so to speak. And then, so we send it and sometimes people are like, what? So,
Proper English is interesting because I have a lot of conference calls with people from the UK, and they have their own brand of weirdness.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did some business in the UK probably about a year and a half ago. And, you take the night flight and you get there and you go all day. And, you have some ales and you're at dinner. And I remember sitting at dinner and I was tired to begin with. I'd flown, we did business all day and had been having some drinks. And they're talking and I'm like, I don't understand a word these guys are saying.
I almost feel like I would understand more words in Portuguese.
Yeah, I was so tired and, feeling pretty no pain.
Well, they have a lot of, depending on who it is, right? Yeah. And if they do a lot of international discussions, it's probably fine.
But they had, the heavy accent and I'm like, I got to go to bed. So I'm Pat Evans. Thank you for having me on today. I appreciate this opportunity to come in and just kind of a little bit more of a relaxed setting. I like that. Born and raised in Green Bay. I went to St. Jude, where I still go to church at, and I'm involved. Southwest High School, go Trojans. They play Preble tonight, so hopefully Southwest wins. I went to UWGB, have a bachelor's degree in business and Spanish, and I do speak, as you probably heard, Spanish and Portuguese. And I have a Master of Science of Organizational Leadership and Quality from Marian College. I've had the opportunity to be a director, vice president, and president of multi-million-dollar organizations. For example, I was the president of the St. Mary's Hospital Credit Union and actually was recruited to be in that position. It was a failing credit union. And meaning the state was going to take it over. And I came in, and after 18 months, I turned that credit union around and made it profitable, and then quickly sold it and got a nice buyout. Before that, I was a vice president with Wells Fargo, ran the University Avenue location, took that location, made it one of the most profitable branches for Wells Fargo in the Midwest. And before that, I was a Director de Ventas America Latina, Director of Latin American Sales for Paper Converting, where I oversaw the entire Latin American division for the flexographic printing.
So you have a lot of business background.
Correct.
So, briefly.
Yep.
So we have we have. Yeah, I don't know why I feel like I have to say that.
Yeah.
So we have theoretically we have a businessman in the White House. So why should people trust having a businessman as mayor?
Well, I think it's, he was more of a developer and realtor, and I guess you could say he's a businessman. Now, you're comparing me to Trump. I think I don't know. Thing to say. I hope to have as much money as he does, but I don't think that'll happen. Well, certainly, why you need okay. So I said this. I'm not qualified to pick up the garbage in the city of Green Bay. Okay, I don't have a CDL. We all have our different abilities and skills. So I always joke around like I have a hard time putting gas in my car, But so you don't want me fixing your car. I understand how internal combustible engine works. You just don't want me fixing it. So same with when you have an organization that is, you've got 1,000 employees, you've got $100+ million budget, you're out there negotiating, you're doing deals, you're doing economic development, you've got a lot going on. And it's certainly you need somebody that has those skills to manage that. So I'm not qualified to pick up the garbage in Green Bay because I don't have a CDL, but I am qualified to be the next president and CEO of an organization. So for example, if we look at all of the candidates, when you look at education, you look at business experience, you look at community experience, you look at local government experience, and I have all those, none of them qualify. That's why I'm the most qualified. So if you look at some of the candidates and you take their background, and let's say they applied for a department head position in the city, they don't even get an interview, okay? They don't even get an interview. But then some of them think, I'm going to be the next mayor of Green Bay. So they're not qualified. It's because the ideology that, some of the voters like, he's a nice guy, or he's, in my party affiliation. So I've got to just dive in to do that. I asked the people to say, hey, let's evaluate the person and let's look at their real qualifications and say, you don't have to like me to vote for me. But you can say, I'm voting for the person that has an understanding of banking, finance, budgeting, and knows how to, to do all that stuff because we have a very complex budget. And so, that's why. So the answer is having that business background, that finance, that educational background is very important to the position. And, but the personas are different,
So we do have a finance director. Mm-hmm. And there's a city attorney.
Correct.
So there are people in place to, help build that up.
Certainly. They give advice. Absolutely.
Yeah. But so do you view the problems of Green Bay as being business type problems to solve, or have we run into personality problems?
Well, both. Government is, it's interesting. Yeah, there's certainly been personality problems between elected officials here in Green Bay. I think it's gone down now. Everybody complained, about it, but I think, to tell you the truth, when they talk about, if somebody comes out and says, I'm going to have a working relationship with the city council and all this stuff, I think it's a cheap shot at the alders who are elected right now, because I can go down the line and I know them all and I get along with them, and I don't see that there's really any people that are, out of line, so to speak. You can disagree, and that's going to happen. But I think it's a cheap shot at the alders when people are saying, or the employees, I'm going to, make City Hall better, and I'm going to work better with the aldermen. When they tell you that means they don't have an understanding what's going on, and it's a real cheap shot, because it's really easy to say that, and the voters are like, we want somebody that's so nice and loving. And I'm not going to be a jerk, obviously, but I think it's a cheap shot because I think I can work with everybody and I get along with everybody. And certainly we'll have our differences.
So we talked before we went on about our love of Monopoly. That's probably overstating a little bit. But
love it.
But we're both aggressive and tend to turn people off on the Monopoly board. Yeah. So how do you think?
Just on the Monopoly board. Right. Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Right. So
I promise as mayor not to play Monopoly with anybody. I won't turn anybody off.
But understanding that we have that, I think we share that personality quirk where, we want to get things done and push forward maybe. Yeah. How do you think you're going to get along with people? Like what are you going to do to?
Well, this is interesting. In my personal life, professional life, political life, I have always got. I have lots of friends, and I don't have really many people that are enemies. There are people that don't like me, and I see that on Facebook. They take shots at me. I have a little bit of an aggressive personality, but I think I've proven that I work well with both sides. See, everybody always wants 100%. I want it. This is my side. This is my issue, and I want it that way. I'm not like that. I have learned in business, and I've been very successful because I negotiate and I put together what we would consider a win-win, or at least it's a good for both parties. When one party has it all and the other doesn't, then it's a bad deal, and it never works out. And that's when you have hurt feelings after a while and people don't get along. So I've demonstrated that I am not hypocritical. I'm here to work with people, and we'll do that. And what's interesting is, I get along well with Jim Schmidt. I get along well with Guy Zimma. Whenever I'm talking to either one, I never talk about the other one. If I'm talking about with Zimma, I don't talk about Schmidt, and if I'm talking with Schmidt, I don't talk about Zimma, because then it turns into me just sitting there listening to both these guys bitch about the other person. But I get along with Troy Streckenbach, get along with all the county board supervisors, certainly get along with all the city council members. If you look at the employees I've had over the past, I don't think you'll find an employee that will say anything bad about me. I've got some great friends that are still great friends. I make it a point of giving people the autonomy to do their job, the respect to do their job, certainly keep them in check, because I will, they have to have a lot of accountability. And so, that's made me a better leader. That's made me a better manager, so to speak, because I've had these great people that I work with, and I respect them, and that's all it's about.
So you mentioned political affiliation, or, so yep. I don't make any apologies for being very libertarian on the political spectrum. Where would you say you fall?
I'm dead in the middle, right in the middle. I'm a pure independent. I'm a fiscal conservative, and that takes about 30 seconds to figure out. I am Catholic, but I don't have any. Those things aren't really come into play in a mayoral bid. But I support women's rights, and then my grandmother, who was a great Catholic, was also a very strong feminist, which is really interesting. And I had lunch with her every day for 23 years, unless I was out of the country on business.
Wow.
So I have a real, and I've been in human services. I've been on the county board 17 years, and like 15 years I've been in human services. So I see a lot of, the issues. For example, one of my issues is homelessness, and I want to attack that as the mayor. And I read a lot, and one of the books I'm reading right now is Bootstraps to Benefits, or Benefits and Bootstraps. I can't remember the exact wording, but in there it starts out with, and it talks about homelessness. How we solve the problem is if two things happen. One, the Democrats the Republicans come to the realize that homeless people aren't all lazy, and that the Democrats come to realize that you just can't give them everything. And that's true. But, so I'm in the middle, certainly said a fiscal conservative.
So how would you convince the people on those polar opposites of the homeless issue? How would you work with them? How would you get them to work with each other?
Well, sometimes you need to two things, a little bit of hard comments on both sides. But there's enough people, I think, in the middle and on the right and on the left who are caring people that we can get things done. Sometimes, I don't go appeasing the far left, and I don't go appeasing the far right. They both dislike me. So it's interesting. So the Republican Party of Brown County can't stand me. They say I'm a big Democrat. Oh, conversely, the Democrat Party of Brown County says, oh, Evans is a big Republican. And I've had this with numerous people belonging to both parties. So that puts me right in the middle, which makes me so happy. And, I'm fine with that. So I don't have a problem with that, because I'm a realist. I'm here to work for the people. I don't adhere to some party line. I'm not being told what to do by any party bosses. As you can see, I'm a pure independent, and I think, the way I've handled myself.
Do you think that that's the case with anybody in city council or county board?
Certainly, yeah, you can see that with people.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's frustrating.
So that just this is a little off topic, I guess, a little bit, but so what's your stance on the marijuana legalization push that's recently happened?
Well, this seems to be, I know you like to talk about it, and Wendy Coriel, who's probably listening, and the llama, everybody's all excited about that. I think everybody knows my position. I don't support the legalization of marijuana. I think it's going to happen. The medical marijuana issue, potentially. I mean, I've read things on both sides. that there could be that it's all fake, then it doesn't work, and then I read things where it says it does work. So I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, is it a gateway drug? I don't know. It is, but we've got enough with alcohol and fatty foods and soda and all that stuff. So could be a good potential revenue maker for the state, of course, with taxes. But unfortunately, none of that will trickle down to the local level, so to speak. It's not like somebody's going to write Brown County or City of Green Bay a nice check for all the taxes collected. If they did, then that would be helpful. But that's where we had the referendum in Brown County. I supported the dark stores one, and so that I felt was I supported it. So when the medical marijuana one came up, they had 2 items, and for that I chose between the 2 that I felt. If it would have been just a legalization of marijuana, I would have supported that because I'm not a hypocrite and I work with everybody, and I would have said I'm against the legalization of marijuana. But it doesn't matter what Pat Evans personally thinks. Pat Evans right now as a county board member represents 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the people wanted to see what that was about. So I can't stifle the voice of anybody. But there were 2 questions presented. So then I took the one that I felt was really most pertinent and applicable, because there could be some real good benefits with medical marijuana. So I thought, let the people really have a decision on that. Because what that does then, if it passes, which it did, now we send that to the state. Now the state really needs to do their job, because it's a state issue, on educating themselves on if there's a true benefit to medical marijuana. And if there is, then they make sure that it gets passed in the appropriate fashion, so that,
So do you think that laws should be practical, or should they be just based on ethics? Should they be based on symbolism? Like, where do you fall on that?
Certainly a law needs to be based on common sense and practicality. We have so many laws on the books that are now we're protecting people that maybe shouldn't be protected sometimes, I mean, so the city of Green Bay right now, they're talking about, you leave your keys in your car, you're going to get fined.
Yeah, what's your take on that?
Really? That's baloney. I mean, last time I checked, it's illegal to steal a car. It's illegal to steal a car. So, but what we're going to do is, let's punish the person. Now, it's common sense tells you it's probably not a great idea to keep your keys in your car and let it run. But I don't know. I have friends of mine that have little kids, and they've got their hands full, and so they run out. They want to keep the car warm, so they turn it on. Maybe they don't lock it, but whatever, they're letting the car run. They're getting the kids dressed, and I'm talking about little kids. They're getting all the backpacks, everything, and then they want to come out and have the car running. Why do we penalize my friends? Or, I'm thinking of a specific friend of mine. Why do I penalize her if somebody steals her car? No, we penalize the person who steals her car. Now we have to make sure to put just another roadblock or another hurdle she has to deal with in her day-to-day life. She's working a job, and surviving and taking care of 2 kids. And so now the government has to come in and do that. I don't like that at all. Just make it practical.
So briefly, I want to just touch on some things from the Mayoral Forum.
Sure.
Just some broad observations, and then we can talk about the Evans plan.
Sure.
So on the forum, from the look of an outsider,
yep.
And I think I'm an outsider. I think a good number of the people that were there that night are an outsider, right? So
I think probably about 80% of the people had their mind made up who they're voting for that were there. But go ahead.
I think that's always true at forums. Yeah. But I still think there's use.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the way there were the candidates up on the stage, and it very much appeared to the people in the audience, I think, just the little bit I spoke to some people about, that people that were a little more right wing were to their right, and people a little more left wing. So I got there just a couple minutes late.
Yeah. But we drew for those.
I didn't know.
We drew for those.
Okay, so it was random.
And so it was all random. Yeah, I came up. We were talking about that because Buckley was on my right and Zimmer was on my left.
I'm like, did you guys choose to sit by each other?
Yeah, no, we did not. So we thought we kind of talked about that. So because I said to Zimmer, I said, well, if it goes by kind of like conservatism, maybe maybe you and I should change spots a little bit. You know?
Okay, so that was interesting.
Yeah, so it was all picked.
So what else did you think about that night?
It's fine. I mean, it was. It's hard to answer a question in 90 seconds. Some of the, and as I pointed out, you saw at the end, I said, I hope everybody realizes I'm the only one that answered the question, because I'm not here to say what I'm going to do. I gave specific examples and information and facts on every question that was answered, because I'm a guy that can say, this is what I've done, not, oh, I'm going to do this. You saw all these platitudes out there. Oh, I'm going to do this, and and it's going to be sunshine and lollipops, and everybody's, oh, that's great. The perfect example was the opioid question.
Yeah.
And I mean, they said, oh, would the city put money toward it and create a task force? Everybody's like, oh, yeah. And Zim was like, there, we got to arrest every drug dealer and, I don't know, throw them in the dungeon or something. And then everybody else is, oh, yes, with this, I'm so concerned, and I just want to pour all this money toward it. And, the only one that gave the right answer was Pat Evans, because I'm on the county board. Buckley should have known this, and Zimmer should have known this too. I'm on the county board. On the county, that's who takes care of the opioid crisis, because we have the health department, we have the board of health, we have the human health and human services department and the human services committee. We've got all sorts of programs going on for opioids. We've got the drug task force. We've got the drug courts that we already set up to get people out of jail and go on these programs. So it's not a city issue. It's truly a county issue.
I think people think it is, though.
Everybody thinks the city is a city issue. But my point is this.
Because
my point is this. My point is it's a massive epidemic. And because opioids have now gone into the child protective services, and we've got problems there because that falls in the line where we've got kids that are getting, taken out of drug houses and they're testing positive. No, the point is you need a mayor that can have the backbone to say this doesn't fall under our purview. It's the county that can do it. Why? I only have so much money and time as the mayor. I'm not going to get into things that don't pertain to it. Now, if they say, Pat, we'd like you on a task force, some people on a task force, to see what the Green Bay's perspective is, that's fine, because the county has task force. We have all that set up already. So, yeah, that's great. I'm on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Board. And, the sheriff is on there. The police chief is on there. So we have some of these task force already set up with the people in place that can help it. But it's certainly not, it doesn't fall under the city, and let the county handle it. So
we have too many task forces and not enough action?
Of course.
Well, how do we fix that?
I hate task force. All these task force. No, we have, because what's happened over the years, sometimes some of our legislators have gotten lazy. So instead of digging into a problem, they say, we better have a task force, because then they'll do it, and then they'll put all this information, and then they'll come back and they'll give us this. And guess what happens about 90% of the time when the task force comes back and you get private citizens on there, some elected people, some bureaucrats, they come back, they bust their butt, they put together a plan, they give it to the let's say the county board, we'll use them for example because I'm on it, and we look at it and go,
nope.
That doesn't align with what I thought they were going to come back with. So thanks, and we just throw that away. A perfect example is redistricting. They had all these groups. We got one now coming forward that we approved, and they're going to have this redistricting, and you can see it. It's going to come back, and they're going to come back. They're going to have a plan, and instead of the county board saying, "Oh, thank you, this is great. We vote for this. Thank you." It's not going to be that way. It's going to be, "What? Who put this in there? Oh, that's crazy. I don't like this. Oh, and it's gerrymandering," and So yeah, we have elected officials for a reason, and that's to do their job and to find the ways to get out there and do that. The problem is that we've kind of made some of the things really part-time, and that's difficult because you have some people that are really, good people, but they don't have the time and effort to put forward to it, so they get out of it.
So back to the Mayoral Forum a little bit.
Mayoral Forum.
So, and it doesn't have to really be based on this. But
Yep.
I guess in general, is there anyone else who's running who obviously you think you're better for the job, but in general that you admire?
I admire. I respect everybody that's running because I think they all bring a different perspective. You can go down the list. But it doesn't mean I necessarily agree with them. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I was the most qualified candidate. I don't apply for jobs where I'm not qualified. I don't perform open heart surgery because I'm not qualified. I don't play center field on my softball team. I played 31 years of softball. You played center field for probably like 26, 27 years. I don't play center field anymore. I moved into the infield because the game is passing me by. I'm a realist. And so, I appreciate everybody else that's running. I think there's a couple people that, potentially could be on my staff because I think they give a different perspective. But I don't think they're ready for mayor yet.
Okay, last Mayoral Forum question.
Yeah.
I guess this really isn't. But who do you think is going to make it through the primary? You and who else?
And Gingrich. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your the Evans plan. Give me the 30-second overview.
30-second overview. We've got infrastructure. We've got streets that are falling apart in the city of Green Bay. Right when you get into the city of Green Bay. So we're going to use we'll use the existing wheel tax for an expiration date on that. Then use the dollars coming out of the budget, just like we should for it's for infrastructure. So we should use that. No special assessments. We'll get rid of that for good. I set a goal of 3% per year. Economic development. Downtown's at a point where it can grow organically. If you want to create tax base without tax rate and without giving lots of incentives, then you use your industrial parks for that. Because we can I-43, we can expand to the south and the east. The University Commerce Center, University Heights, that's almost raw right now. Could be but with saying that there could be a little bit of a wrench thrown in here. I talked about Military Avenue and Velp Avenue, but we may have to shift gears a little bit and really go after Military Avenue. Depending, we got Shopko, Sears, the Toys R Us in that area. So it's taken some big hits, and that might have to be an area that we really focus on right away. Because
so what does focus on mean? Because so they added a wheel tax.
Yeah.
We're hitting these people on fixed incomes up with special assessments.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
and a wheel
money
tax
has to come from somewhere.
Correct.
So how do we resolve all these things? We have some new issues that are coming on on the radar, and we have these legacy issues that maybe got neglected. What do we do?
Well, you need to have somebody that understands a budget, because I talk about infrastructure, economic development, and community. The Evans plan. The real item is the budget. You can't have infrastructure, economic development, community. You can't have diversity. You can't anything if you don't have a healthy budget. Right now, the city does not have a healthy budget. You need somebody that needs to have an understanding of how to do that. So I was reading, Mr. Gingrich was at a forum, and he was talking, and I put this on Facebook. I talked about zero-based budgeting, and that's what I do in the business world. And Mr. Gingrich had quoted that, so he must have saw it on potentially the Llama, and I'll give them a shout out. But it's complicated. You can use it, and he talked about using it in the context that I read and what he said. He was using it wrong. So it sounds good, but you need to know what the hell you're doing. And I tell you, because the question, like for example, Green Bay Press Gazette asked the question, or the Young Chamber or somebody, how are you going to what creative ways are you going to fix the city budget? Mm-hmm. My answer was, there are no creative ways. There's solid finance and budgeting principles, accounting principles, and organizational development principles. So I have a Master of Science in Organizational Development, Leadership and Quality, And so there's lean manufacture, lean that you can use. There's Kaizen, some of the different things in there. There is zero-based budgeting. It's having that understanding on how you need to get through that, and with a great prioritization. I don't think we've had that right now. And certainly we've got a lot out there in TIF, so this is a really tough budget. I mean, the city's bond rating got reduced. A lot of people don't know that. So the county's AAA, for example, and the city was as well, and they got reduced down to AA1. That's not good for a city. It's still a good bond rating. Nobody freak out. So it's still a decent bond rating. 18% of the budget goes to pay debt services. So 18% of the budget is going to pay, debt and bonds. And that's, in a healthy city budget, you should be at like 13%. You probably go up to 15, but really 13 sometimes is a little high. So you need to have somebody that has this understanding. And when you start talking about it, people just get glassy-eyed and they get bored with it because it's not a fun thing to talk about.
So in general, what would be the approach? Would it be like we need some across-the-board cuts? We have some things that the city shouldn't be doing?
When you there's some things the city shouldn't probably be doing. We could take a look at that. There's some areas that I think you can do some consolidation or at least have some good synergies with within the city. We have a Green Bay Public Schools, which is its own municipality in itself. There's a lot of different areas that we can look at combining services, and see how we can work together.
So can you think of any examples of that?
Purchasing, health insurance. We have the Green Bay Public Schools has their own garbage trucks that go around and pick up garbage. Well, the city of Green Bay has garbage trucks too. They're plowing everything. We got plows now, and maybe that's all certainly legitimate and needed to be done. And I'm not for putting people out of work. I don't like that either. But I think there's ways, and I've never put anybody out of work. Even when I expand operations into Latin America, Mexico, Brazil, all these countries, we never put anybody out of work. That's one thing I personally will never do. I've had a company in Cleveland, Ohio that we were working with, and he wanted to shut down his factory, and I said, I'm not the guy for you. So I don't do that. We can do it through attrition. People retire. But there are certainly many areas that we need to look at organizationally and budgeting. This across the board cuts is terrible to do because it can really impact one, area greater than the other. When you say everybody's got to cut 4 or 5%, well, you can use that as a goal going in, but that's not a good way to do things.
So I mean, everyone has limited time. The budget's pretty big and complex. So we had I had Bill Galvin on a while ago already, and we got the 2-minute marker.
Okay.
And he said that he's gone through the budget with a fine-tooth comb. Sure. There's no fat.
Yep.
That was in regards to the wheel tax. We have to do this. Yep. We have no choice. So what do we do?
Well, that's Alderman Galvin's opinion. I've gone through it. I think there's some areas that we can certainly look at. It'd be premature for me to start digging. I'm not here to take a shot at any alderman. I'm not here to take a shot at the mayor. I'm here to talk about that we have some issues with our budget. And that's a perfect example. That Alderman Galvin is then almost endorsing me, saying we need somebody that has a really good understanding of organizations and budgeting and finance. So I appreciate that because he may, in his eyes, he's correct. So you need somebody that really understands this because otherwise you're going to have problems. You have some big problems, I'll tell you that. If you don't have
so you can have the last minute and a half.
Well, thank you. I just appreciate the opportunity to come on today. We had a fun discussion. I like that. People can kind of maybe see that I'm somewhat of a fun guy, instead of always thinking I'm some guy. I mean, I do have to settle down because I do get, excited. I have that personality where I get pretty aggressive, but I'm proud of my accomplishments, and I love Green Bay, and I've done a lot for the community. Some of the things that I didn't talk about is, the awards I won. The Community Impact Award from the United Way, which is a huge award for the work I do for children who are abused and neglected. The Community Partnership for Children, Excellence Through Partnerships, same thing. 2-time finalist for the Press Gazette Person of the Year for the work I do for adults who are developmentally disabled and have Down syndrome. 10 years ago now, I was one of the 40 people under 40 you should know from the Green Bay Chamber of Commerce. So I've given my heart and soul to this city. I love it. I love the people here. I've had opportunity. I've done business in 30 countries in this world. I've had opportunities to move to a lot of really cool places, and I turn them down because Green Bay is a great place, and I really want to continue to move it forward and make it a great place to continue to live. But we do have some issues that we need to deal with. We've got a lot of poverty. We've got homeless. We have infrastructure, problems, and you need somebody that has the total package, and I have that with my local government. I'm the local government experience, the business experience, the education, community involvement. And I'm the only candidate that can say that I voted for a budget that froze taxes, kept all the service levels at the same level, didn't incur any new bonding, reduced our debt, and fixed roads. I'm the only one that can say that. And the only one that can say that I've managed multi-million-dollar organizations, done business in 30 countries, has a strong banking, business, finance background, has the educational qualifications as well.
So if anybody has additional questions for you, where should they go?
Call you. Call Elliot.
Elliot,
give your cell phone number. And you can go to evansformayor.org. There's an area there you can see that they can send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to help to respond. So,
and
Evans we have a Facebook page as well.
And the election is?
February 19th is the primary, and April 2nd is the general.
So get out and vote. Thanks for
Vote for Pat Evans.
Thanks for being on, Pat.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
As always, if you're watching on video, I feel really sorry for you because I'm seeing myself right now. But if you are and you like what you're seeing and hearing, please hit the little bell on the YouTube, and you got to subscribe and get your alerts so that you know when we have a new episode, especially with the primary coming up. I think that actually that is something that will be of interest to people. If you are listening to this, that is the smarter choice, I think. Go to iTunes or go to the.
I can't see how handsome you are.
Yeah, right. I like to be in denial, but Jacob flipped my screen today, so I have to see what I look like.
That's a pretty face, folks.
It's a face for radio.
It's a face for radio. And a voice for newspaper.
A voice for newspapers. So finally, if you have anything to add or any questions that you want to have that you don't want to go right to Pat for, go to our Facebook group, the Blind Partisan Facebook group community there, and we can talk about it. Thanks for watching and listening.